Welcome. This is Artist on Art. I am the very, very lucky person to get to come to you all every week and speak with the treasures, our artistic treasures here in Santa Cruz. And today I have such a wonderful power couple that I get to bring to you all, and that is Danusha Lameris, poet extraordinaire, and partner Armando Alcaraz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. It's really a thrill to be able to talk to you both. I had the wonderful pleasure a few years ago to get to hear Danusha read her poetry and Armando play his guitar and sing. And ever since then, I really want to get you all on Artists on Art. And here you are.
Here we are.
On a special day.
On a sunny, beautiful day.
And it is a beautiful day. And thank you for tuning in to KZSC Santa Cruz. After that wonderful show, Easy Living, we get to play a little talk, some interviewing, and then after us is Moon Majoon, one of my favorite shows to say, Moon Majoon. But today, right now, we're talking to Danusha Lameris, who also here with Armando lives in Santa Cruz, and both of you went to UCSC, you're alum.
That's right.
And so it's fun to go back and forth between the two of you, but let's just start with Danusha.
Okay.
Danusha, you're pretty well known. You've been published in some amazing publications, the New York Times Magazine, American Poetry Review. You're an award-winning poet. And we're so blessed to have you here in Santa Cruz. And you brought your book, August
did.
Moon.
The Moons of August. I brought it, and maybe we'll read a little bit from it today.
You promise?
Yeah.
And so, Danusha, you're not only writing poetry, you also give classes.
I do. Super fun. Classes that are limited in size to 6 poets at a time, and love it. I live in a little red barn out in Happy Valley, and the classes are held there, and it's just been a really cool and amazing experience to work with really gifted writers in an intimate setting.
And if you're interested in learning more about Danusha, she has a beautiful website. It's DANUSHALAMERIS.com. And you'll go there and you'll see beautiful pictures of Danusha, and it looks like the barn. I haven't had the chance to go out there.
Could be the barn.
And then you also have a calendar of events and things that are coming up. And you also have it's like I said, a lovely website.
Thank you.
And also, you have poetry there.
A little bit.
Just a little bit of tease.
Yeah, and some links
tease.
to things. Yeah.
And some links of poetry that's been published in other publications.
Yeah, I was lucky Garrison Keillor read a couple of my poems last year before he shut it down this year. I guess he just retired. So there's some links to that.
What an honor to have Garrison Keillor read.
It was really fun.
Yeah. Which pieces did he read?
I hope I can remember. Let's see. Did he read fictional characters?
Fictional characters.
He read fictional characters. You'd think I would know.
He read names.
And he read names.
Names.
How long have you been writing poetry, Danusha?
You know, I started writing, I got the bug, I would say, in high school. A poet named Tony Hoagland, who later went on to become really well known and just an amazing poet, happened to be dating our high school Spanish teacher. And he offered to teach us a week-long class in the spring. And I learned through him that poetry could be totally irreverent and wild and relevant. And we just had classes at his little apartment in Berkeley. And so that was really fortuitous. Even though I didn't go on to write more seriously till my later 20s, I kind of got the bug, got the inkling.
And it grew into a beautiful...
Well, kind of a life practice.
Right. And how long have you been teaching poetry?
I really don't know. Because some of the students, they used to just be over the phone. I didn't have classes. People would consult with me. And so maybe it's been 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what's it like to, like, poetry to me is so vast and intangible in a way. Would you mind telling us a little bit of your process?
In writing or in teaching more?
Let's go writing first.
Okay. So in writing, it's a process that looks like nothing at first, right? It looks like maybe I'm doing the laundry or sitting in a cafe staring out the window. And I was that kid in class that the teachers would say, Danusha's lovely, but she really likes to stare out the window. And so it looks like that at first. And then for me, usually I then catch a riff of something that I want to follow. And I'm a pretty linear writer. Like I'll tend to write the whole poem straight through, as opposed, some people might write 10 pages of notes and then glean things from that. I'm not that person. So it kind of looks like getting a draft and then going over it and over it and over it for weeks or years. Yeah.
A little bit of obsessiveness there, you think? Or
I think poets probably are a little obsessive because every word weighs so much in such a small space that well, it's funny. I come from a family where of watchmakers and designers and engineers on my father's side. And I think it is like being a watchmaker. You have to attend to each little part, each little mechanism.
And do you find it sometimes starts with the feeling, or is it an event, or just life flashing by?
Life is happening, and then the way I catch it tends to be a phrase that gets stuck in my head. And it's usually the first line. So I think that's the jumping off point.
The arrow, maybe.
Yeah,
the
that's
direction.
kind of the arrow that points to it. And the fun thing is, as a writer, is you don't know where it's going. You don't get to know what's going to happen. You know, it's like getting on a horse that's going to break into a full gallop and you don't know where it's headed. So that's exciting.
And you want to just hang on.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've been able to study with some amazing poets, particularly Ellen Bass, who is also a local treasure.
Yeah, love Ellen.
Would you tell us a little bit of how that relationship has unfolded?
Okay, yeah, I'd love to talk about Ellen. So I started her class when I was in my late 20s, not knowing I wanted to be a poet, but knowing I wanted to write. And it was just a great container in which to explore. But pretty soon I figured out it was poetry I wanted to do. And so I stayed in that class studying with Ellen for a lot of years. But by the end of it, our relationship had shifted to where we started meeting one-on-one to help each other with poems. So we do that to this day, actually. And probably will within the next week or so, as soon as she's back from Hawaii. But that's been a really rich relationship. It really has opened so many doors for me. And she just she's such a good teacher. Such a good teacher.
And you've also gone to the Squaw Valley Writers Workshops. In fact, you're considered one of their poets when you go to the website. I'm on that website now, right?
I have a little thing. But there's so many great poets who come out of there, who come out of Squaw Valley, and so many amazing teachers. So yeah, I got to study with, Sharon Olds and Galway Cannell, and just really incredible. And Dorian Lux has been a big influence for me, and she taught there as well.
Would you mind sharing one of your poems?
Sharing a poem? Okay, I'm wondering where to dive in. Well, I was talking about horses, so I think I'm going to read something that has to do with horses.
Danusha Lameris, reading from her book, The Moons of August.
All right, here we go. And I always think of this, this is a poem for girls who loved horses, and it's called Riding Bareback. We rode all afternoon along the barren creek bed, jumping boulders, kicking up dust, clutching the coarse manes. I wrapped my thin thighs around the bulging sides and hung on. It didn't matter. There were horse flies, heat, the itch against our legs, the dry grass full of ticks and ready to catch fire. We were 10 years old and flying past fields fringed with oak and aspen, held skyward. The earth, its rough stones and clumps of nettle, weightless below. For a while, we'd forget our spiral notebooks covered in glittered stickers, the careful shape of the words we etched inside. The sardine can of the yellow bus, where boys elbowed us in the ribs, grazing the small cones of our breasts. Whatever it was our fathers drank from the bottles they kept above the sink, whatever our mothers cursed as they soaked the dirty dishes, straightened the sheets, we were beyond it now. Crashing down into the empty creek only to lift back up into the summer air, we were that light, that far outside the laws of gravity. Nothing could touch us.
Oh, that was beautiful. Danusha Lameris, reading from her book, The Moons of August. You, like I mentioned, you've received some pretty amazing awards. You've been, the Bedouin Dress received the first place in the Atlanta Review's poetry.
Oh, yeah.
And you received the 2015 Pushcart Prize Anthology. You had a special mention in that.
A special mention, yeah.
And your book, The Moons of August, from which you just read, was chosen as the winner of the Autumn House Press Poetry Contest.
Yes. That was exciting for me because of the chooser, who's one of my favorite poets, Naomi Shihab Nye. And so to go from being this person just sort of writing away in, my own obscurity and barn to being in communication with her was really wonderful.
And
yeah,
recent.
And kind of recent. That was 2014 that the book came out, so just a couple of years ago.
And I have to mention the poem that you just read, Riding Bareback, was selected by Gary Young as the winner of the 2013 Morton Marcus Memorial.
That's true. Morton Marcus, another treasure in Santa Cruz, passed away some years ago now. Yeah.
And so do you find yourself looking to these other poets much for inspiration?
Yeah, I think constantly. I think, there's certain books I keep by the side of my bed that just feed me, and they're almost my security blankets, these voices that I feel so connected to.
One of those wouldn't happen to be Lorca, would it?
Well, maybe not deeply I love Lorca, but probably more for Armando with the poets that he grew up with.
And when he reads them.
And when he reads them, that works.
And they are love poetry mostly, aren't they?
A lot of them. They're kind of really wild and imagistic. Mm-hmm. And I like being read to by my beloved, so no complaints.
Okay, so this is the great segue. Y'all didn't get together when you went to school here at UCSC, so tell us how did that happen? Yeah. I guess it was later?
It was later. I actually, I grew up in Mexico City, and I didn't arrive to Santa Cruz.
That was the problem. You weren't here yet.
Yeah, so I started studying. I left my studies in Mexico, and then I arrived to the U.S. and then ended up in Santa Cruz in Cabrillo College, and then I transferred to UCSC. But so I arrived in Santa Cruz in 97. So by then I think you had already finished your studies, right?
I got here late.
So
timing is everything. Really. Sometimes you meet and it wasn't the right time. You're listening to Armando Alcaraz and Danusha Lameris. Armando, what did you study in Mexico?
In Mexico, I studied. I started studying physics, and I was also in a guitar studio that was very specializing in classical guitar, and then after doing that for a little bit, like after one semester, I decided I just wanted to be a musician at the time, and so when my parents were on a trip, I decided I was dropping college, and I ended up, so then I did that, and that took me for, I then eventually I went to a school, a music school in Mexico that was another private school, but I learned composition, and this was still kind of like in the, more of a classical music tradition, well, going into more contemporary music too. And but then I was always involved, as Danusha was saying, even when I was in college, I would have tertulias, we would call them, nights with my friends. We would get together. They were all my friends were physics, actually. And a lot of people, like, I think the first day that I went to school in physics, the teacher asked, how many here play an instrument? And more than half the class raised their hands. And so a lot of my friends were into music, into poetry, into the arts. And we would get together, we call them tertulias, which is a word in Spanish. It's kind of like a get-together where people bring poems, or not necessarily poems that they make, but it could be what they write, or just writings that are inspiring, or poems from other people. So it was then that I started also getting a lot into poetry. And also my teachers, guitar teachers, were really believed to be formed as an artist. You needed to have like more of a breadth of knowledge rather than only your instrument. And so they really encouraged reading and getting to know other arts.
You're listening to Armando Alcaraz talking about coming to the United States and the amazing number of physicists that are artists. The line between science and art is something that I'm fascinated by, and feel that scientists are artists, and creating solutions and seeing the patterns is an art practice in itself. And so I'm not surprised at all that a lot of your physics friends also were romantics. It's wonderful.
I think that's very interesting what you just mentioned about it's kind of like recognizing patterns, and I think, what I do right now, I don't make my living out of music. I focus. I'm more of my expertise is in leadership and communication, and so I work with companies and organizations. And part of me kind of does see it like an art, because it is recognizing patterns, and they are not when you work with people, there's not like a set rule. You have to kind of get a lot of intuition. There's a lot of intuition involved. There is some basic things that you have to cover, but there's a lot of intuition in terms of how things are going, and also using creative processes so that people become aware of themselves, and so that's also how I see how kind of this part of my life, or the art and creativity, comes into play into what I do.
And how much imagination is critical to both the work that you're doing and Danusha's, of course. I'm imagining that you didn't write Riding Bareback when you were 10 years old. You wrote it older, as an adult. So you had to remember and imagine, and it was wonderful because it really took me there. Not that I'm a horseback rider, but I could see it. I could feel it. And I think that's great poetry.
Thank you.
But when you say that imagination is critical.
It's critical. Yeah. And it's, there's a quote that's been banging around in my head a lot lately that's from a book by Thomas More, A Care of the Soul. A lot of people have read it, where he says and this is about imagery, really, that aspect of imagination, where he says, what food is to the body, complex, arresting, and pleasing images are to the soul. Oh, isn't that a wonderful thing to say? So he's saying, essentially, we crave imagery. We crave that experience of rich imagination as a kind of sustenance. And I think that's true.
Yeah, I think so too. And we're back. You're listening to Artists on Art here on KZSC Santa Cruz. I have the wonderful pleasure of speaking with poet Danusha Lameris and her partner in crime, Armando Alcaraz, who does leadership and communication training and uses music and also nonviolent communication as some of the tools that he helps leaders attain their highest selves? What would you say, Armando?
Yeah, I think just I help leaders attain, results that I'm hoping they can attain results that are transformational in their work and for the quality or the environment quality that they want to attain, and like with people working with them, and so that the people that they lead can also bring their better selves to the table.
And you described it as tools that you have in your arsenal, let's say, and nonviolent communication being one of those.
Yeah.
And perhaps we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But right now, you also use music for mindfulness, for...
Yeah, a lot of this, what I see a lot in art is that, I think the process of creating art, or the process of doing that, it kind of is bringing attention to ourselves. And when we bring attention to ourselves, we bring attention also to, we transform by doing that. And that's kind of like the basis also in mindfulness, that you become the observer. But just by the nature of observing yourself, you start to change, you start to transform. And you see it even from, like in more mundane things, like if you have a, people have experience, for example, in diet, right? They have you do a food journal, and you find that you start eating differently just because you're noticing what you're eating. And but to levels that are also, different, like, or more subtle, maybe, in terms of art, because the process of art is looking. What I see is looking into myself and finding a reflection of myself and expressing it out in some way. And I do that, with people that I work with. Often, like, for example, if there's a team, I use this this very old way of looking at life, which is the Chinese 5 elements. And it brings that like I would say, artist thought process with people that are using it, because they're reflecting on themselves. They're reflecting on what their own qualities are. And they're finding a way to express it. I give them a model to express it in a way that is, in a way it's artistic, like, am I kind of like water? Am I like fire? Am I like wood? So it also helps in that process.
You're listening to Armando Alcaraz. Armando, tell us a little bit more about how you use the 5 elements in your leadership training.
Well, I call it sometimes. I wouldn't call it so much a training. Often, it's mostly like a process, because what I do, or what I have done, is, if I have a group that want to work better together, I help them bring the very real issues that they have and talk about them amongst them. But also another part of it is I help them reflect on who they are as individuals and who they are as a team, and what are the qualities that they have as a team and individuals. And so the 5 elements, it's what I really like about it is it's kind of like a process, and it has a whole it's a whole process that is described in with images and metaphors of elements, which are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And so, I could talk for a very long time, but I think in short, it's a process that both helps individuals kind of figure out where are their strengths, what are their strengths, because they can see what element they kind of have more of in their actions and the way that they're thinking, but also gives them information in terms of how they interact with each other and how they can balance each other off, and what sort of other elements they need to balance themselves. So it gives them a very good idea of what the overall strengths of the team are and of the dynamics that they have among them.
That's really interesting. If you'd like to have more information about Armando's work, you can go to his website, armandoalcaraz.com. That's ArmandoAlcaraz.com. Armando, you have your guitar.
Yes.
Are you going to play for us?
Yeah, I'll share a song that I used often in this process of reflection, because a lot of this is reflection on yourself. I mean, one of the things, even in leadership, one of the most important things is to have this sense of who you are in relationship with others. And, and executives pay a lot just to have somebody to give them that feedback, because it's, the moment you walk into a room, you get people looking at you, and you don't know how they look at you when you walk out of the room. So you only know the impact that you have. You don't have the contrast to know the impact. So there's many ways. I mean, sometimes you can have interview people about, what they think of you and their perspectives. But also, some of it is also is the capacity to self-reflect. And so this song is a questioning song. And I wrote it because I think at some point I was talking with Danusha, and it's like, I don't know, I have this song I'm kind of wanting to write. And she said, why don't you just ask questions? And so it's a song of questions. So it's called Am I the Rain? Am I the wind blowing away the mist surrounding you? Am I the rain washing all your pain away? Am I the sun warming up your cold, long days? Am I the stars guiding you through the night? Again, am I the music that you dance to, or the line you never cross? Am I the audience that you pray for, or the stranger you never call? Am I the captain of the ship? Am I a friend that for you weeps when you fall? When you fall again. Am I the wind blowing away the mist surrounding you? Am I the rain washing all your pain away? Am I the sun warming up your cold, long days? Am I the stars guiding you through the night home again? Am I the music that you dance to, or the line you never cross? Am I the audience that you play for, or the stranger you never call? Am I the captain of the ship? Am I a friend that for you weeps when you fall? When you fall again.
That was Armando Alcaraz with the beautiful song, Am I the Rain? If you'd like to see more of his or hear more of his music, he's on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com. You can find Mango Lasa.
Yeah, I'm still working on putting them on public viewing, but I'm going to try to do that after.
Okay, Mango Lasa, and it's I Am the Rain, and you can hear it there. Danusha, does this bring up any poems that you might want to play? Or, I mean, not play, but does I Am the Rain inspire you to read more?
Gosh, I'm working on a rain poem that isn't done yet, so I wish I could share that. But
you might be able to share it because you're going to be doing a salon at Gabriella Cafe,
that's right.
September
Maybe
5th.
Be done by then.
The wonderful, wonderful salons that happen the first Tuesday of every month, where the owner of Gabriella Cafe finds he has so many wonderful friends here in the community, and he brings them in. They're of all different types of artistry and experts. And September 5th, hopefully you'll be,
That's what it's looking like. Me and my good friend Lisa Allen Ortiz, who has a new book out called Guide to the Exhibit that also won a book contest. And she's a really exciting poet, and we always have a really good time reading together. So that should be a really fun night.
Great. So Danusha Lameris, what are you going to read for us now? Who's also a singer.
This has musicians in it, so how about I read this one? It's called Mosquitoes.
Wonderful. Yeah, we know that music.
I know, right? Thin buzz of hunger, constant hum. At night I drape a net around my bed just to keep them away. They like the flesh above my ankles best, and then the sweetness of my face. The Buddhists say we mustn't want to kill another living thing. How often have I taken one, crushed it in my palm? A saint said the lion is in love with the gazelle it hunts. I love salmon, so I saute their bodies with garlic and butter, slip the moist flesh in my mouth. And haven't I bitten my beloved until a pink stain colored the skin? A tiny drop of blood is all they want. Is that so much to ask? And they are so devoted, groupies at the backstage door, a band of Hare Krishnas wailing in the street, cherubim playing their small harps without cease, as they are said to do in heaven. Only this is not heaven. I dream of a night without blemish, of love without the sting. But here they are, a mini mariachi hovering outside the net, singing their same old high-pitched serenade. Volver, volver, they cry, the song about the one that got away.
Danusha Lameris. I don't usually empathize with the mosquito, and thank you for that. I'll think twice when I crush it with relish.
Maybe.
And that's not from your book.
I know, that's a newer poem. That's from the next book.
Yeah. Tell us about the next book,
I'm
Danusha.
kind of excited about it. Isn't that great? We have a book and then we're like over it and excited about the next thing, human nature. But the next book is in progress, and it's tentatively titled Bonfire Opera. And it's a lot of poems that deal with animals and desire. I feel like those are the threads I'm seeing. Not necessarily together. But even that mosquitoes poem, I think, kind of talks about the erotic and about desire, and then it's about an insect. There's a lot of that kind of thing happening.
Ooh, I'd love to be inside your mind for just a little bit. It's very exciting. Danusha, would you like to read another?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's see. New thing, older thing. Okay, I'm going to read. We were talking about science, and I was actually raised by a physicist and a biologist. My mom is a retired biologist, and my stepdad, a physicist. And so the dinner table conversations were interesting and about science. But this poem is influenced by that. And it also has to do with something my mother told me when I was at a very impressionable age about one of her early jobs in research.
All right.
So I'll read that. Shall I go ahead?
Sure. Danusha Lameris reading from her book, The Moons of August.
Thank you. The God of Numbers. My mother once had a job measuring penises. Penises that belonged to men whose chromosomes were askew. The trouble, she said, is that when I went to measure them, they'd grow. I picture her pulling a wooden ruler from a pocket in her white lab coat. How hard we try to break the world down, make sense of it. How steadily it resists. My friend David, an astrophysicist, had a job counting the clouds of dust around stars. An assignment that, in my mind, put him in an echelon of angels, just above the ones who number grains of sand. There's something comforting about inventory, futile as it may be. The act of assessment itself a form of care. I like to imagine a God who rises before dawn, takes out the stone tablets, and starts to tally the individual hairs on each head, the number of breaths we've taken in the night, who counts the cilia shooting our cells through the dark galaxies of our bodies, just before he gets back to work, turning out the next tornado, or reaching down to give the tectonic plates another good, hard shake.
Danusha Lameris, thank you so much. Again, if you want to see more of Danusha's work and links to her other work, you can go to danushalameris.com. DANUSHALAMERIS.com. Armando, now I toss the ball back at you. Is there a song that you might be inspired to? Did you put your guitar away? Oh, okay.
Oh. It's here. Let's see. I wasn't as prepared with songs, but something that I let's see. There is a song that I because sometimes one thing that I work with people in terms of vulnerability. So this is, I might not play the whole song, but just like a couple of verses. But it's so, vulnerability is something that often leaders, we try to hide. Mm-hmm. And there are some, but there are some problems with that too. And so, it's through vulnerability that we can actually make a connection, and it's through it that sometimes, like we can gain a lot of respect and a closer, relationships with those that are working with us. And so, this is a song that I wrote thinking of vulnerability, and it just has a lot of images. But I'll sing it, and it's called That Land.
Armando Alcaraz.
When will my heart be free again? Leave the shelter and walk out into the rain. I'm tired of running around and round this hole, not falling, not finding my soul. Bring me a drink and a song. Wait for both to be done. And when the silence comes around to ask, let's listen to the one behind the mask, and find me a sailboat that will take me to that land where the light shines gold and silver, and the mountains call me back, call me back, call me back.
Yay! Armando Alcaraz playing live here at the studio KZSE, and we are so thankful for it. Armando is a leadership and communication coach.
Consultant
who helps leaders find the best in themselves and their teams.
Yeah, and I think I really focus on leaders that want to really make transformational results in their organization, and that's what I help them attain. Mm-hmm.
And if you'd like more information, you can go to armandoalcaraz.com. And Danusha Lameris, what a pleasure to hear your poetry today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us and for doing this in general for the community. I think it's just an amazing thing. And gives people an opportunity to see what's happening.
Well, that's the whole point of the show, is for the artists to come out and shine and give us a glimpse into their practice and their philosophies. And it's just been such a pleasure to see you both around town. And I look forward to September 5th. The salon at Gabriella Cafe is going to be tremendous. I hope that both of you can come back on, especially when you have an event that you can invite the community to share in your art. And
I'll be honored. Yeah.
And good luck with your next book.
Thank you.
I can't wait.
Having fun.
The book, The Moons of August, is from our own Danusha Lameris, and you can find that at the Bookshop Santa Cruz.
You can. It's at Bookshop for sure.
Yeah, and you can get more information on her website, danushalameris.com. I want to thank you both so much for coming into the show. I want to thank Silvana for coming in and helping, and I also want to thank Vanya Benavides for live tweeting and Facebooking during the show.